Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. This is going to be a fun one because it has to do with several questions I've gotten recently from young anglers that want to start beginning tournaments. And they don't want to just jump up to the front of the boat. They want to fish out of the back of the boat as a co-angler or the amateur in what a lot of tournaments have, where you fish versus the other amateurs or the other individuals in the back of the boat against them during the same event. So you're not competing at all against the pro or the person who's in the front of the boat. And personally, I think that's one of the best things any angler can do if they want to become a better fisherman. Not only if you want to pursue a career in tournaments, but also if you just want to learn. If you happen to be in an area where there's a lot of tournaments on the local lake and you just like to fun fish and you're not having a lot of success, it's a great way to jump in and learn the lakes that you fish because you'll learn from the other anglers there as to what you need to do. It's one of those things that it's not necessarily just for people that want to go out and pursue a fishing career in the tournament world. It's just a great way to learn. It's a great way to try out a bass boat. If you think that's something you may want to buy, jump up to it. If you're running in a small aluminum boat and you don't know if you necessarily need a bigger boat, and you've never been in one, jump in a tournament as the co-angler. Fish out of the back of it. You get to see how the boat rides, how it performs, and determine for yourself whether or not that's the right thing to do. So I think it's a great thing overall for an angler to do. It's one of the things I look back on in my own personal career and wish I had done more of. I've probably only fished 4 or 5 tournaments as a co-angler when I was back in high school and college. And in reality, I wish I had done more of it, especially at the higher level tournaments, your Toyota Series, your Bass Opens, because for me, I jumped right out of the upper Midwest region into the professional ranks, and one of the biggest hiccups I had over the first couple of years was just not being familiar with different types of bodies of water. All I knew were natural lakes and rivers of the upper Midwest region. So when I started seeing highland impoundments, lowland impoundments, TVA, Florida lakes, it took a while for me to get experience. And had I fished even just 1 year as a co-angler, I would have learned a heck of a lot more and feel like I would have sped up my learning curve. So I do recommend that it's a great thing for people to get into. Now, having said that, the questions I got were not only do I think it's a good idea, but what are some of the things to do to make a smooth transition into the back of the boat? Can you carry in 100 different rods? Can you fish wherever you want? So questions regarding that. And truly, that's what's going to set you up to learn more on the water. If you show up and you do not treat your boater in a good manner, they're not going to want to help you. They're not going to tell you what they're doing. They're not going to give you the baits that you need. So keep in mind that this is a learning process, and the people in the back of the boat, even though you're fishing in a tournament against other people in the back of the boat, it needs to be considered a learning experience for you. And I assure you, the nicer you are and the nicer you are in the boat will only make your day more enjoyable, and you will learn that much more. So here's a couple of rules of thumb that I think you want to engage in anytime you're fishing as a co-angler. The first thing that I always do anytime I've got a co-angler in my boat is we sit down and have a conversation before the day gets started. That conversation allows me to set the guidelines that I expect on the water. And generally speaking, they're not even fishing related. Things like, I want to know your experience level. And the reason I want to know your experience level is so that I know if I'm running big water, maybe you're not comfortable in that. Maybe you've got health issues and I should not run big water because I could put you in serious injury. I want to know how good are your net skills, because if we're allowed to use nets, I would rather net my own fish unless you feel very comfortable with it. Are you okay with backing up my boat and trailer to back me into the water or pull me out of the water? If you're not comfortable with that, I want to know that. There is in no form or fashion am I judging that angler. It's just simply going to make our day go better if I feel more comfortable, knowing what skill level you're at. I've had tournaments that cost me dearly because I didn't know that the co-angler had never fished a tournament before. Honestly, I feel like I could have won a US Open event, except for the one day I fished with an angler that has never fished before. And I didn't know that until it cost me a couple of fish because of some netting issues. So I don't blame that individual at all. I just would have liked to have known it. I would have netted the fish myself. So since then, I use that as a learning experience. And that's one of the questions now I ask anytime before the tournament starts when I'm in the boat with my co-angler. What's your level of experience? Because it's important to both of us to know that. So, I'll go over things like I expect the individual to respect my boat. I do not want my co-anglers stepping from the back deck to the well of the boat on by using my seat. I've had seats torn. There's a step between my two seats, so I ask them politely to use the step versus standing on the seats. And more than anything, if there's anything that they need help with, feel free to ask me throughout the day. I also let them know that generally I'm not extremely talkative first thing in the day. I like to let the day kind of dictate the mood. And if I'm struggling, I generally will bear down even more. And the reason I like to let my co angler know that is because I don't want them to be timid in terms of asking me questions, but I want them to know that I'm going to be locked into what I'm doing. And therefore, just because I'm not talking, I don't want them to take it as a negative, like I don't like them or I don't want to engage in conversation. It's just I'm concentrating on what I'm doing. And generally, the day dictates the conversation flow. If you're having a good day on the water, then the conversation generally is great. If you're both struggling on the water, generally speaking, both anglers then are really dialed into what they're trying to do to try to salvage the day, and there isn't as much talking. But I think it's important to express that first thing in the day. I let them know that, hey, I'm going to be focused on what I'm doing. Feel free to ask me for help. Feel free to ask me what I'm doing, but just know I'm not going to engage in a ton of conversation from my end to start that. I think that's an important thing to do. So I like to get that all out of the way right off the bat so that both the co-angler and the pro know what the expectations are. The other thing I like to address is from a fishing standpoint. I really respect the fact and encourage co-anglers to not rush their pros in terms of fishing. And what I mean by that is allow the pro to fish the target that they want to fish. And then when they're done, you get the opportunity to fish that target. But if I'm fishing a laydown, I would really appreciate it if the guy in the back of the boat is not fishing that same laydown. I like to be able to make the cast to it. If I go to a dock, let me fish the dock. Let me, if it's a big dock, let me fish and where I'm going. So, if I want to let you know, hey, I'm going to fish that dock in a different manner, please don't cast in a certain place. I will ask that. There is a lot of rules in tournaments that I can't specifically state where they can and cannot cast, but I will let my co-anglers know that if I'm intending to get a different angle and I'm just moving the boat to position it, I'll let them know that. It's up to them if they want to make that cast or not. In the most case, if you ask both sides, if a co-angler asks me, hey, I'd like to get one more cast in there, I let them make one more cast. Like it's that communication thing. If both anglers have respect for each other, the day goes great and you're going to help each other out. But the biggest issue you can make as a co-angler on the water is fishing the water that the pro is still in while he's not done with it, meaning give him enough room. And by enough room, generally the rule of thumb is if you drew a line down the middle of the boat, the co-angler gets behind that line and the pro fishes in front of it. Now there's going to be times when that changes, but again, that's where your conversation can come into play. The other thing I'll add with that is a lot of times co-anglers will state, well, if we're going down a bank, the pros fishing everything, there's nothing left for me. I cannot stress enough how important it is for co-anglers to throw to the other side of the boat. If you're going down a bank, I can assure you there's probably as many fish on the other side of the boat as there is on the bank. The bank may offer more high percentage targets that the pro is fishing thoroughly, but realistically, you're not going to catch those fish anyways because they're fishing it thoroughly. So you're better off fishing for the fish that are out on the other side. Now, I'm not saying you have to throw to the other side of the boat. I'm just stating if a pro is 15 feet off the bank and he's paralleling the bank moving forward, your options at that point are pretty much to throw behind the boat and drag something behind the boat or to cast to the other side. And what we have found more than anything now with forward facing sonar is there's every bit as many fish suspended off the bank as there is on the bank. So keep that in mind as a coangler. I think that's really an important thing to keep in mind. Another rule that I would recommend to just not violate, and it's not a rule, but another guideline would be to not, if you know what the pro is doing, so say a pro is going down a set of docks and the pro turns in to fish the dock from the inside, and you can turn and cast to the next dock before the pro has fished it, don't make that cast. You know, the same thing happens if you're on a flat and there's laydowns and you know where your pro is going from stump to stump or laydown to laydown. Don't fire a cast from 150 feet away to try to get that first cast in there. That, I'm telling you guys, if you try to take advantage of the pro's going to do a couple of things. They're going to position the boat in a manner where you're going to get even worse casting opportunities. And two, it's going to lead for a bad day where they're not going to want to help you learn from the outing. That's just how it is. If you're out there and you're competing with your pro, that's the wrong mindset. You're competing against the other co-anglers, not the other pros. You're there to learn from the pro. So those are some of the biggest things I'd recommend. Other than that, it truly just comes down to treating each other with respect. And this isn't one-sided. This is not just co-angler treat the pro well. It's the pro treats the co-angler well. Because honestly, guys, I have met so many great friends that I've met 15 years ago through these events where they were co-anglers in my boat and I talk to them on a daily basis or, on a weekly basis now because we hit it off in the boat that one time. It's so important to recognize the fact that everyone is in that event because we've all got the same this same love of the sport. So you should get along with these individuals, meaning if we've got something already in common, that is a very strong bond. So it's generally speaking, if the day does not go well, not from a fishing perspective, but from a have fun, enjoy the time out on the water, it's because of the fact that either the pro or the co-angler did not show respect towards the other angler. So that's one of the most important things. It all comes down to conversation and communication. As long as you guys set the boundaries and set the guidelines early on of the expectations of the day, your day on the water will be great. And it's so important to go into it thinking, what am I going to learn today? And like I said in the beginning, it doesn't have to be, what am I going to learn today that's going to help me catch more fish? It may also be, what am I going to learn today that I can learn from to not do because I know it doesn't help me catch fish. So there's a lot of things you can learn, but keep that in mind, and it is a great way to learn. So uh, I encourage all of you that if you want to fish tournaments or learn your local bodies of water, sign up as a co-angler in a tournament. It's a great way to enhance your own fishing skills. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.